Hi everyone, as promised, here is a continuation of last time's abusive relationships. This time we're going to talk about my first husband. The way I've tried to protect myself throughout my life is by moving from relationship to relationship and convincing myself that each one is slightly better. But obviously, this is not and was not the case. Each one just contains slightly different types of abuse on different levels. Now, if I went into every bad thing that happened in my marriage to my first husband, we would be here all day. So I just want to highlight a few instances so you can understand how the relationship was abusive and how my childhood abuse shaped my decisions, no matter how bad. As you know from last time, I met my husband through the first abusive relationship I had after I left my mother's house. The reason I chose to move on was because the abuse in the relationship and lack of care was becoming more and more apparent. My husband, as I will refer to him here, was showing more care, and I convinced myself that I had feelings for him. He was handsome and charming, but let's face it, he was a bad boy with little care about his future prospects and put friends above everything else. He was also a huge mama's boy. Whatever she said went, and she was always right. So we got together by cheating, and it's not a nice thing, and it isn't right, but I did what I had to do to save myself. My mental health was in the drain, and I felt uncared for. From the moment I walked into his house, I knew he did not have great parents. His mother spent pretty much all day, every day, in her bed, had an extremely bad temper and believed she was entitled to everything, and people should wait on her hand and foot and she didn't have to lift a finger. Does this sound familiar? Because it should. She displayed a lot of the same behaviours as my mother, screaming the house down when she didn't get what she wanted, being emotionally abusive, throwing things when she lost her temper. So of course I bonded to her because it was familiar and it was what I knew. I so desperately wanted a mother that I accepted her way of showing it. From the first time we met, she had me changing her young children's nappies, looking after the house, and generally doing whatever she wanted. I will say now that the house was an absolute mess and probably a hazard to anyone who had good health, let alone someone with my complex health problems, which I did not even know about at the time. The first time my husband cooked for me in the kitchen, I was violently sick without even getting halfway through it. I didn't know whether this was due to how sick I was or how malnutritioned I was at the time or just general hygiene or lack of in the kitchen. We would continue to hang out with my ex even though I'd moved in with my husband. I was still continuously humiliated by him, with my husband not standing up for me. We'd go out at night having been drinking, and I was put into situations that made me uncomfortable, such as trying to take off my bra in public, stealing things, and just generally causing trouble. But again, I went along with all of this because I wanted somewhere to belong and I wanted someone to love me. My husband was in college at the time, and I spent a lot of time alone in his bedroom as I was too afraid to interact with anyone in the house, especially his increasingly violent younger brother. But his bedroom had a downstairs bathroom, and people decided that they could use this and walk in at any time without any respect or privacy for us. Meaning I was often left in a state of undress with these practical strangers walking into what was meant to be my safe space. This included his father and two teenage brothers, which left me feeling increasingly vulnerable and unsafe. At this time, I'd stopped going out, so my mother always seemed to know what I was doing, managed to get hold of my phone number or social media despite how many times I changed it or other identities I used. I was also becoming increasingly sick with dizziness, headaches, sickness, high temperatures, and low blood pressure. But I had to deal with this alone as no one was bothered with what I was going through, no matter how many times I called for help. I spent a week being violently sick, not eating anything, throwing up every time I tried to drink, and having such a high fever that I was becoming delusional. My husband's mother then thought it would be a good idea to bring McDonald's. Of course, one sniff of this, and I was throwing up everywhere, which is when his dad finally took me to hospital in little more than a dressing gown. Now, normally you have to wait hours to be seen in A&E, but I was obviously so ill at the time, I got rushed straight to a bed. I didn't know how ill I was at the time, and I did protest going to the hospital. I had tubes coming out both arms, was on anti-sickness, IV antibiotics, and all sorts of other medicines. I spent a week in hospital with a few visits, even from my ex, who was just taking the piss out of me and generally making me feel worse. Again, this all felt like a show for the public and not actually anyone caring for me. And this was the start of my journey to finding out my kidney had failed and just how sick I actually was. I didn't know at the time, but my life was on the line, and if I hadn't gone to hospital, I most likely would have died due to kidney failure. And I realise we haven't gotten very far into the relationship, but I will carry on next time. And as you can see, there are a few key players in this relationship that made it so abusive, not just my husband myself. See you next time. Be the voice, be the change.